Beep beep. What is up, ninjas? My name is Sam World, and in my quest to bring to you guys new tech house tutorials, I was asking myself, what have I never made a tutorial on? And lo and behold, guitars in tech house is something I've never really talked about on this channel. So what I did today for this tutorial is I've recreated 3 guitar melodies for you guys so that we can study the melodies, and if there's some sort of correlation between them, we can kind of know what to use, what kind of scale, what kind of guitar sound, what kind of effects are they using, etc., so that you can gain this knowledge and use it in your own tracks, or maybe even use it with synths and not guitars. Now, as always, guys, if you want to support the channel, make sure to head over to evilsounds.com, where you can find all of my sound design work. That is the best way to support the channel. And with that being said, let's get started. So the first thing I have to ask or say is how to get the guitar sound. Now, it'd be nice for me to say the moment you bought Ableton, you paid like $900 for it, for the suite. The guitar that it comes with is the best, and that's what you should use to get something that sounds like. But sadly, that's not the case. This is going to be a scenario where it's pay to win or pay to play, because honestly, the best guitar that you can get out there is going to be utilizing Contact libraries or UV in order to achieve the sound. So I'll show you guys the example. So you heard that, the Ableton version. Now we're going to hear the Electric Sunburst version from Contact. There's really nothing on it, but it already sounds good, and I really like this thing. And we're going to talk a little bit about how to use it once we get to the effects section and recreating the sound of the melody. But the first thing I got to say is this is the first melody, and it's going to be from a Green Velvet track called Sugar, which I love, but I like the Dave Pence remix a lot more. It's a little bit more like peak timey, and I just want to go party and drink a bunch of beer. All right, so the melody is going to go in the scale of C minor, A sharp, C, D sharp, F, C, C, G, and C. So in C minor, we have the scale of C, D, or sorry, the notes D sharp, F, G, G sharp, A sharp, and C. Now, if you notice the melody's really not playing the second note in the scale, and it's not playing the 6th note in the scale. So if we omit these, we have something called the pentatonic scale, which is a great scale for jamming out melodies. It sounds very pleasant. For instance, here's the C minor scale. The notes that give the most tension in the scale are going to be and, but. Now, if we omit those notes, now we're like in Asia. Voice Dot Pentatonics gave you this sort of ethnic vibe, Asian vibe. Okay, cool. So this melody, you could say, is in a pentatonic scale in the format that it's being played. But let's check out the other melody. So here we have another one by Mark Knight, and I believe it's from a track called Move It or something, but it's going to sound like this. Okay, so this one is going to be in the scale of E minor. But again, if we kind of escape out the E minor, you're going to notice that some notes are being omitted. First off, the F sharp's not being played again. The C5 is not being played again. So we have a pentatonic format of that. And now the best melody out of the bunch, in my opinion, is going to be from Alex Preston's track, All I Need, which is, I think, fairly new. And this is the melody for it. So this one, I believe, is going to be in E minor as well, which is going to be your E, your F sharp, your G, your A, your B, your C, your D, and E. However, if you look at, again, the melody itself, it omits those notes heavily. You don't have the F sharp. You don't have that C being played. You're kind of skipping over it. So again, a lot of the guitar riffs are following a pentatonic, and this is a trick and tip that a lot of people give, is when you're jamming over something, pentatonics are the way to go. The question is why? Well, pentatonics will always sound good on top of any chord most of the time, and those, again, the 2 and the 6 note really need to be in a specific scale if you want to play them a lot. Usually in pop music, they're used more as passing notes, so maybe that might be the reason why. Okay, cool. So if you had the question, what kind of scale should I use to get a more uplifting, groovy, funky melody? Give pentatonics a chance. You know, maybe not 100% of the time, but maybe 80-90% of the time. Most melodies that are tech house that have an uplifting vibe in minors are going to be pentatonic. Okay, cool. So with that out of the way, let's talk a little bit about the plugin. So we have Electric Sunburst here, and we're going to start with the Green Velvet one first, which is going to sound like this. Okay, so the cool thing about this, guys, you can definitely just use the presets if you want, but I think learning it opens up the doors for when you really need it to sound a certain way. You're able to program it. First off, we're gonna be using the melody version, where we can have the guitar be open, muted, flagello. I'm not Italian, I don't know how to say that, and tremoloed. Open is probably gonna be the more popular one you're gonna use because it's gonna sound like a guitar, what you're used to hearing. Muted. Great for like pop, indie rock. And then tremolo. Good for transitions. If you want a guitar transition, it works really well. But we're going to stick with the open format there. From here, you're also going to have pattern, which are really useful. If you hear some of Mark Knight's tracks, he has guitars playing like these cool chord stab patterns. Obviously, you can make them yourself, but if you wanted to kind of mess around with some of the patterns, you can kind of put in, let's say that. You're going to hold the notes that you want to hit. And you can do some really cool stuff, holding the E1 MIDI note to do that. From there, we have the guitar settings where you can kind of put the guitar to sound both the bridge and neck. I believe it's the mics. It's going to sound a lot heavier and a lot more so if you're looking for that, that's cool. But the bridge is going to be the one that I feel is used mainly more in tech house. The neck, a little deeper, but again, the bridge seems to be more of the fun. From there, we can also double the guitar, which is a cool trick that many people do to get a wide guitar. Okay, and then from there you have other cool like kind of things to play around with. But from there, we're going to move on to the effects. And this is where it gets fun because a lot of these techniques can also be applied to synths. So for the Green Velvet sound, we want a twang amp. And the reason I'm picking that one is because before I made this video, I checked all of them out and all of them sounded too much like Metallica was coming back and rocking the world again. But twang is going to be the one that gives the guitar a good amount of meat, gives it a good amount of color, and lets the guitar kind of pump out more. From there, we're going to lower down the gain, which means less distortion. A bit of bright. And then from there, let's not double it. Okay. From there, we're going to add a bit of reverb, which these are all common effects we all know of that we can add to get a very nice sound. From there, it's all about the tonality of the guitar. So again, when you use a guitar, you should expect that this is the way it's going to sound like, so you already know what you're getting yourself into. Now, as we move on to the Mark Knight one, the Mark Knight one is a little more interesting. First off, we're going to go into the guitar settings and set up a doubling because that guitar melody that he has in his track is wide. From there, we're going to leave it as is, and we're going to move on to the amp. So again, for the amp, we're going to use a twang just because it doesn't over distort. From there, we're going to put an effect. Now, the cool thing about the effects is that once you have your standard echo and reverb that many know, you do have your modulation effects, which when it comes to synths in tech house, you don't really hear them that much. But you can get some really interesting results if you were to use them. The first one is going to be the choral effect, which is going to be a chorus. And what this does usually, it will duplicate the sound as it comes into the chorus, and you will have two versions, and then those two versions are going to get modulated in terms of the pitch and in terms of the timing. So from there, you can choose the amount, the rate, the speed. And you can kind of get this kind of movement on the guitar, which makes it sound sort of like it's off key if you program it a certain way, or it's going off key. Okay, but from there, the one that Mark Knight decided to use, I feel like, is the flare. And the flare adds a really nice sort of flange effect, and you can make it sound cheesy if you start going through the settings, but this is something that was added, and then maybe a hint of reverb, in all honesty. Maybe not too much. But it's really cool. Again, the guitars are going to need that sort of movement if you're trying to get the funky vibe in your guitar if you have a funky track. From here, we're going to move on to the more interesting one, which I feel is one of the harder ones to recreate, which is the Alex Preston All I Need one, which is going to sound like this. And it has some really cool effects going for it. The first thing is that we're not going to use a rotator. We might use something like a phaser. And then we're also going to compress the guitar very heavily, utilizing Pro C2 to get the bite that he has in his track. But from there, the more interesting thing is the utilization of a filter. Now, I feel like this is going to be more of a wow effect in the guitar, so you can use a pedal like that. But the idea is that we're going to have this movement filter with a high resonance. Which you're going to automate the mix on to get it to sound really nice and juicy and funky. So essentially what's happening here with Filter Freak by Sound Toys is that we have a filter that's moving back and forth. It's going to be a bandpass style of filter with a fairly high resonance. We're going to have a 4-pole, which just means it's more lenient. If we go to the right more with 8 poles, that just means that the filter gets a lot more tighter. So we're going to have it kind of lenient. And you can automate the dry and wet on it, of course, or you can just leave it up if you want. And you can also run the mix like kind of like at 50%, so you have that sound, but you still have the fullness of the guitar. Cool. Now I've made a little loop here with Deceiver Volume 4 so that we can kind of implement a little bit of the things that we have learned into a little loop that we have here. Now I believe this is going to be in E minor as well, like most of the other tracks were in our examples, and it's going to sound like this. Okay, so let's input like a melody, and again, we'll talk a little bit about other things that are very important when utilizing these sort of guitars. So here I'm going to have a guitar that I've made inside of Electric Sunburst. We're going to have, again, the AC box. We're going to go with the twang. Okay, and then from there, we'll just have a hint of reverb. Okay, so I'm going to record that. I feel like playing the guitar out on a MIDI keyboard or something is a lot better to get something that sounds a lot more organic. Now you can tell that the guitar sounds a little robotic, and the way that we're going to fix this is by, first off, we're going to play around with the velocity. So velocity is going to tell the contact library how hard it should hit the note. And then maybe we'll go kind of down an octave. I'm also going to decide to make the guitar be a bit wider by maybe utilizing, again, the double. From there, the guitar is feeling like it's lacking a bit of high, so we can use the twang to add that in. From there, let's add a bit of like movement to the guitar by putting in maybe something that we learned from Mark Knight or something, like adding a bit of a modulation effect. And then from there, we can maybe apply a little bit of that Green Velvet stab by going E5. Let's add that last note. Okay, cool. Now, guitars don't necessarily have to be playing riffs or melodies over your tech house stuff. You can also use them to do stabs. So one of the ways to do stabs is pretty simple. We want to be minor. Let's just do a standard minor scale. But you're going to utilize two or three notes, and you're going to kind of use your root, and then from there, +3, and your 7th. And you're going to play the length is very important. And then we're going to kind of do maybe there and accentuate. And then from there, you can do really cool stuff like so. But let's assume that you kind of want this, but you want it to sound kind of like ticka, 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 or guitar licky. Then we can utilize this guy, select the cool pattern, maybe the funk. It tells you it's an E1, so we have to play the E1 MIDI note as well at the same time in order to activate it. And then from there, we can kind of find one that we like, maybe. So this one sounds really cool, and it gives us that cool sound. Okay, so hopefully you guys enjoyed this video on Tech House guitars. In all honesty, it is this kind of simple to kind of do it. The hardest thing is just coming up with the riff and whatnot. But again, you can do a lot of really cool things with the guitars. We talked about a bit of the effects that you can use to add movement to the guitar. In this last example, we used the chorus. We can also use essentially the filter freak or a form of filter modulation tool to get the guitar to really move. So for instance, we can kind of go and say, you know, this guitar is sounding a little dull with doing just that. Maybe we can add a bit of a filter freak on that. And really get it to move, and then from there the filter freak is just going to be moving. Maybe you want it to do like LFO format, and then you just have this really cool sort of like thing that's just going to be going at a very low rate. And it just makes the guitar sound alive. So again, hopefully this video is helpful for you guys. I'll catch you guys next time for another video. And if you want to support the channel, make sure to check out evosounds.com. Much love to you guys. Take care and peace out.